Unfortunately, the Washington Commanders just got some more bad news on the potential of trading for edge rusher Trey Hendrickson, and today we'll be breaking that down. And then we'll also be talking about some potential Plan B contingency plans at the edge rusher position if the Washington Commanders are unable to land Trey Hendrickson via trade. Welcome into the Commanders Report by Chat Sports. I'm your host, Jack Sperry. Make sure you guys are subscribed to the channel because if Adam Peters does, in fact, land Trey Hendrickson via trade, we're going to be going live on this channel. In fact, if they make any big trade, we will be going live on this channel this offseason, so make sure you guys click that subscribe button if you haven't already for wall-to-wall Commanders coverage all throughout the 2025 offseason. So let's start with the report from yesterday from Jordan Schultz here, who says, here's the latest on where things stand between the Bengals and Trey Hendrickson. The idea of a trade appears dead, and the Bengals would love to complete a sweep of paying all of their key players. Of course, the Bengals just signed their wide receiver duo in Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, massive contracts, and now it appears that the Bengals are dead set on getting a deal done with Hendrickson as well. Now, I'm still holding out hope, all right? I don't think it's a 0% chance that Adam Peters is able to come up with something here, and, negotiations could fall apart between Hendrickson and the Cincinnati Bengals, and he could be on his way to the nation's capital at some point this offseason. But I will say it's not looking good. The fact that, we've been getting more and more positive reporting in terms of Hendrickson and the Bengals reigniting contract discussions, it definitely doesn't seem like the chances are all that high that the Commanders are going to be able to trade for the stud edge rusher that they have been trying to acquire ever since that Myles Garrett requested a trade back during Super Bowl week. So they're probably going to have to look at some other options, some plan Bs, some contingencies. So let's go over some of those contingency plans here and what the Washington Commanders can do at this position to make it the best it can possibly be heading into the 2025 season. Of course, you have Dorrance Armstrong, who you signed in free agency last year. You brought back Clelin Ferrell, and the two new members that you're bringing in are Dietrich Wise, who's currently slated to be a starter, and then Jacob Martin, who's more of a rotational pass rush specialist. So I think that this unit, the one piece that it's missing is a true number one pure pass rushing talent. And that's really what this unit really needs. And, I think that there are some good options, and there's some potential options available still available in free agency that are fits. Von Miller, formerly with the Denver Broncos, the Los Angeles Rams, and most recently, the Buffalo Bills, is currently available. His 2024 grade with the Bills was an 85.5 and more of a rotational pass rusher type of role. If he wanted to come here to Washington to play that role, I think he'd be just fine. Matthew Judon was a former number one edge rusher, kind of a bigger guy. Would kind of fit what Dan Quinn and Joe Witt Jr. want from their number one edge rusher, but he did not have a good season last year. He joined the Falcons late in the preseason, and he never really got going there with Atlanta. He had a 43.0 PFF grade last year. Preston Smith had a good season in a rotational role with the Pittsburgh Steelers when he ended up being traded to Pittsburgh last year with a 77.0, but I'm not sure if he's necessarily a number one. He really never has been. And then Zadarius Smith didn't have a stellar season last year either with just a 64.9, but those are probably the four best edge rushers still available on the open market. And out of these four free agency options, guys, I think the best one is Von Miller still. And, even if he's not an every down type of guy, that's not, the Commanders don't necessarily even need him to do that. You do have Clelin Ferrell and Dorrance Armstrong, who are very sturdy run defenders on early downs. You still do have Dietrich Wise that can be a part of the rotation as well, but Von Miller is still very capable of getting after opposing quarterbacks in a rotational kind of designated pass rusher role with the Buffalo Bills last season. He had 6 sacks and 7 tackles for loss. He's still somebody that can get the job done. Now, he's not the superstar he used to be, in Super Bowl MVP, back in the day, but I think that Von Miller is still a good player, and if you're looking for somebody to come in on passing downs and kind of be a true pass rushing specialist, if you don't want to address that spot in the draft, you can go out and get a guy in Von Miller who's still very capable of playing that role. So if it's not Trey Hendrickson, how do you want the Washington Commanders to address the edge rusher position? Do you want them to go out and get a veteran, another one in free agency? Or would you rather address this position in the NFL draft? Let me know what you guys think for today's pinned comment. In just a second here, we're going to talk about our friends at Fanatics before we go over some of the best options in the NFL draft this year at the edge rusher position. But before we talk about that, let's have a word from our sponsor here at Fanatics, where you guys can go to chatsports.com/Debo right now to get your brand new Debo Samuel Commanders jersey. It's officially licensed by the National Football League from our friends at Fanatics. When you guys use our link, chatsports.com/Debo, click that link and you make a purchase. Fanatics sends us part of the proceeds. And that helps us keep the lights on here at the Commanders Report. That helps us buy new equipment, new graphics, all the stuff that allows us to give you guys the best damn Commanders coverage money can buy, 100% free every single day right here on YouTube. So thank you guys so much for all of your supports. If you're already planning on getting a Debo Samuel jersey, you can get it right now while also helping out the show. Go to chatsports.com/Debo to get that business done right now. All right, so the best case scenario in the NFL draft for the Washington Commanders, and of course this means, this is if they don't get Trey Hendrickson in a trade this year. Washington would be able to get a legit number one edge rusher in the NFL draft, and one of the top three guys in the class falls to them in round one. And I really do think that there are only three edge rushers in this class that really have true number one edge rusher in them based on their film in college, right? That's Abdul Carter, who's going to go in the top 5 this year out of Penn State. He is a truly special prospect, probably one of the 3 best edge rushers I've ever evaluated in my time evaluating for the National Football League draft over the last 8 years. Then Mike Green is a really, really good player as well. Really, really good around the edge. He a phenomenal bend. He plays with great finesse as well. He's an absolute predator out there attacking opposing quarterbacks. He had a phenomenal Senior Bowl week as well, had great tape against the Ohio State offensive line. This guy's going to be able to come in and be an impact player day one. And then James Pierce Jr. out of Tennessee, very long arm, good arm length, I would say. And then he's got a great power for his size. He's only like 245 pounds, but he provides some very good explosiveness and a great bull rush at his size. But that's not the only thing that he brings to the table, guys. I think he's a better run defender than he gets credit for. And he does have a myriad of pass rushing moves that he brings to the table. I have a top 10 grade on Mike Green right now and a top 20 grade on James Pierce Jr. But when it comes to Green and Pierce, there's actually a chance that they could potentially fall in the NFL draft this year because of some off-field type of stuff pertaining to each of these edge rushers. Mike Green has kind of an outstanding history with sexual assault allegations that go back to his time with the Virginia Cavaliers, and then also back to even before Virginia. So when he went to Marshall, he's had a completely clean record, and he has been open about that and his past and all the different things that ended up happening earlier on in his life. But it seems like he's willing to talk about it. He's willing to admit that he was a young man that made some really, really bad decisions at the beginning of his life, of his adult life, and now he's willing to put that behind him and be an upstanding citizen for his new team. And then James Pierce Jr., there's been some reports of some behavior issues, of some work ethic issues, of him not being the best teammate, all these different things. And, you got to do your research on these guys, but I do think Mike Green and James Pierce Jr. are awesome players, and they're top 3 edge rushers in this class. So if other teams begin to, go in another direction in this draft and take other edge rushers ahead of them, and you get to pick number 29, and either one of these guys is still available for you at the end of round one, as long as you've done your homework and you feel comfortable with the person, I would be absolutely down for getting Mike Green or James Pierce Jr. to be the new number 1 edge rusher here in Washington. Then there's 3 other edge rushers that I think have the potential to be number 1 edge talents in this league, but they're not all the way there yet, or they have certain question marks. Michael Williams out of Georgia, Shamar Stewart out of Texas A&M, and David Walker out of Central Arkansas. Michael Williams is somebody that's very long levered. He's got extremely long arms, and he was kind of misused in the Georgia defense, in my opinion. They played him almost in almost like an interior type of role where he wasn't really able to attack opposing quarterbacks one-on-one against the tackle all that often, like he's going to be asked to do at the National Football League level. So there's just not a lot of tape on Michael Williams that projects to the National Football League level, but he's a really good athlete. He's got really long arms. He's a phenomenal run defender, and I know that is really important to people like Dan Quinn and Joe Witt Jr. So keep your eye on Michael Williams if he falls to number 29, which is actually a legitimate possibility. But then Shamar Stewart is somebody that, if I'm being completely honest with you guys, he's a great athlete. He's got a great bull rush. He brings some great power to the table and some really great athleticism. But he scares me a lot because he played closer to like 285, 280 at Texas A&M. He's gotten all the way down to 265 during the draft process. And for somebody that relied so much on the bull rush, I don't know how much sense it really made for him to drop that weight. He's going to have to develop more finesse. He's going to have to use his hands better at the next level. I think he's a good run defender. Maybe not a great one, but he's definitely a good one. And he's got some high upside because of the power and the athleticism that he brings to the table. But I also think that there's a pretty high chance of him being a bust in the National Football League, especially if he plays at that lower weight and he continues to try and really be dependent on that bull rush. And we've seen a lot of guys in this league, Tyree Wilson, Lucas Van Ness, Trayvon Walker come into the draft with just a bull rush, and it's just not enough to be a high leverage edge rusher in the National Football League. So even though Shamar Stewart has really high upside with his physical profile, the fact that he's lost weight and the fact that he's really a only bull rush power type of rusher at this point in his football journey definitely scares me if the Commanders end up taking him. And if you're looking for a sleeper number one type of edge rusher, I would point you in the direction of Central Arkansas's David Walker. Now, when you watch Walker's film, guys, and trust me, I had to go to some lengths to find Central Arkansas film. But when I got a hold of that film, this guy is unblockable at that FCS competition level when he's one-on-one. Now, that's what you would expect from somebody that's going to be going in the first 2 days of the NFL draft, playing against that level of competition. But this guy is a very unique build because he's just over 6 foot tall, which isn't very tall whatsoever, but he's 265 pounds. All right, so he is an absolute bowling ball, and he's got some really, really impressive physical traits. The get off is really nice. His bend around the edge and speed is really impressive. Then he's got the size to be able to, you win the leverage battle, get under your pads and drive you backwards with the bull rush. And he's got some really good hand fighting moves as well. Like I said, this guy was unblockable at the level of college football he was playing at, and he had a really good week at the Senior Bowl as well. So I think he does have some number one pass rusher upside. He's got the density to be a run stuffing every down a pass rusher in the National Football League, and he's really built low to the ground, but he brings some really nice athleticism, which I think really makes him difficult for offensive tackles to handle. I think that he's going to be a really good player in the league, and if the Commanders get him on day 2, I think that you might be looking at an absolute steal and a potential number one edge rusher at the NFL level. So if you're looking for a sleeper edge rusher to potentially be a number one guy, look at David Walker out of Central Arkansas. Make sure you guys click that thumbs up icon if you haven't already, if you're enjoying today's content. We still got some other edge rushers we're going to talk about today on the NFL draft. But if you're enjoying today's content, it really does help out the YouTube algorithm, guys, when you click that thumbs up icon. So if you want to help me out today, click that thumbs up icon, and let's get to the rest of today's show, where if you miss out on a true number one guy, if I were the Commanders, I would then shift my focus to somebody that can be a designated pass rusher and pass-heavy situations. Because we talked about it earlier with Von Miller. Von Miller would probably be more of a designated pass rusher if you bring him in, and you would have Dorrance Armstrong and Cleveland Ferrell really take on most of the early down work. That's the way it was for most of last season. And Dante Fowler Jr. was your designated pass rusher. He ended up getting 10.5 sacks for you. And there's plenty of edge rushers in this class that can play that designated pass rusher role that will probably end up going on day 2, maybe late round 1. Donovan Ezeraku out of Boston College. I hope I've got that name right, but I have a top 50 grade on him. Maybe the athletic profile isn't phenomenal, but he's got such great tape, really good bend for somebody that maybe isn't the best athlete in the world, really smart rusher as well, maybe not the best run defender in the world, but I think he can develop into almost like a Harold Landry type, where he's a true number 2 edge rusher that can be very productive in the National Football League. Really like his tape out of Boston College. Jalen Walker is somebody I'm a little bit lower on. He played kind of like a Devin White true blitzing linebacker role there with Georgia. He didn't play a whole lot of true off-ball linebacker with the Bulldogs. He came in on pass-heavy situations and just rushed the passer, essentially. And I think in the league, he's going to have to be an edge rusher. Now, I think that in a designated pass rusher type of role, he can certainly develop into a really nice pass rusher in the National Football League, but I do think because he hasn't played a true edge rusher position, he's going to have to develop a little bit. Some people have him even as high as like a top 10 pick. I am nowhere close to that high on Jalen Walker. Now, if there's a defense that's going to use his talents in the correct ways, I would want him in the defense that uses Frankie Louvu and his blitzing skill set the correct way. So if they ended up taking Jalen Walker in round 1, I actually wouldn't hate the pick, but I have a top 50 grade on him, not a true first-round grade on him. Princely, I'm not even going to try to say the last name here out of Ole Miss. He's very similar to Donovan Ezeraku. All right, where he's kind of taller. He's not that fast, but he's like a speed rusher. And you might be asking, well, Jack, if he's not fast, how can he be a speed rusher? Well, it's about the bend. And his knee and his hip bend around the edge allow him to really take great angles to the quarterback, and then their balance and strength to stay on their feet and continue their pursuit of the quarterback is really impressive. So I think that Ezeraku and Princely here are two guys that are very, very technically refined. They're not the greatest athletes in the world, but they can definitely be productive designated pass rushers. Josiah Stewart out of Michigan, very proficient pass rusher, all right? Not a very good run defender whatsoever. He's undersized, or run defender, I should say. But Stewart is somebody that has a bevy of pass rushing moves. He's very technically refined. He's got some nice speed and bend around the edge as well, and more pop for somebody of his size than you would think. So I like his profile a lot. Then somebody the Commanders are looking at quite extensively right now is Olu Oladejo out of UCLA, who just played his first season on the edge last year, but he's already developed a cross-chop move, which was last year's UCLA Bruin edge rusher Leatu Latu's signature move, and it's already pretty darn good. And he's got long arms. He's got a great athletic profile. If you're looking for somebody to develop at the next level that can probably start as a true designated pass rusher, I think Oladejo is somebody in round 3 that I would be thrilled to get in this building if I am the Washington Commanders. Now, some people might be asking at home, Jack, you haven't talked about Nick Scorton yet. This is somebody that's been mocked to the Washington Commanders quite a bit, and I think if Scorton stayed at the 290 whatever pounds he was at last year, I would have liked him a bit more. Just like his Texas A&M teammate Shamar Stewart, though, he's gotten down to like 260 pounds. He has lost a lot of weight for this draft process, and I think that he's a better finesse rusher, and he's got more in his bag as a pass rusher than Shamar Stewart does. But for a team that really needs a true pass rushing specialist or a future number 1 guy, I don't know if Nick Scorton fits either of those categories. I kind of see him more as like a true number 2 edge rusher that's going to be a good run defender. He's going to be a good pass rusher as well, but he's not going to be dominant in any area of his game. And especially because we just haven't seen any tape of him playing at 260, 265, I do worry that, without the mass that he played at there with the Aggies last year, he's not going to be as good of a run defender. He's not going to be able to rush with power as much as he did at Texas A&M last year. So there's a lot of fog of war. There's a lot of gray area, and there's a lot of question marks surrounding Nick Scorton that I'm not sure if he's the best fit for what the Washington Commanders are looking for at edge rusher this year. So who's your guy? Let me know down there in the comment section. Which edge rusher would you like to see the Commanders sign or draft in 2025? There's a bevy of different guys that I would be happy with. If it's going to be free agency, I would like a guy like Von Miller. But if it's the NFL draft, if you can get Mike Green or James Pierce Jr. and they fall to you, that is terrific. But other than that, guys like Michael Williams, David Walker, even if you get a designated pass rusher like Jalen Walker, I would be happy with that pick as well. So let me know what you guys think down there in the comment section. Click that subscribe button if you haven't already. If we get more updates on the Trey Hendrickson kind of debacle that's going on right now, if he signs a new contract with Cincinnati, if he gets traded to the Commanders, we're going to let you guys know when that breaking news hits right here on the channel. So make sure you click that subscribe button if you haven't already. Until next time, guys, go raise some hail.